Today's guest comes from a family who may as well be regarded as military royalty. But I'm not going to go into those details. That's for Verity to do. It's that time again, folks. It's time to prep your standard NATO. Okay, Verity, thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you so much for having me.
So let's just start this off right from the beginning. You have a really long history of military service in your family.
I do, yes.
And was it your great-grandfather?
Yes.
Tell us about him.
Lieutenant General Sir J.J. Talbot Hobbs. He used to live at the bungalow. The house was known as the bungalow, which is where my brother and I were born. We were born in a hospital close by, but that's where we spent our first 10 years. And that was, quite amazing, really, because it was always a security for me, being Hobbs in Peppermint Grove. My brother and I used to just wander the streets on our walks, and nobody had ever sort of bothered us, which was wonderful. That security really lasted such a long time in my life, but of course it couldn't last forever. But there is a certain security that is always there from it, yes. And if he and my great-grandmother, Lady Hobbs, had 7 children, but 2 died when they were young. And the first child was Dorothy, who is, obviously a female, and that has happened quite often in our family, that a female is born first.
Oh, so the best comes out first then.
Well, we don't want to be true. But his third son is my grandfather, and that is Lieutenant Colonel Athol Hobbs, and he was married to my grandmother Isabel Hearn, who committed suicide at 19 at the bungalow, is considered from postnatal depression. So there's all these sort of, stories within that grand story, including, the victory at Villers-bretonneux, which was my great-grandfather's battle design, although that has been argued, debated on.
Everyone wants credit, don't they?
Well, this is coming to something too. That's where Monash was a wonderful man, and he did a wonderful task in World War One, but it is often forgotten that my great-grandfather was knighted twice, and knighted at the same time as Monash, and as it read in the Victory Parade in London, and all these sort of things, and yet it is all about Monash.
He's in the spotlight.
It's because it's not about superficial things, if you know what I mean.
True. And obviously he did a lot of great things as Monash's second-in-command, villers-bretonneux and Gallipoli and all that. But he also had quite an impact on Perth as well, didn't he?
He did indeed.
Tell us about that.
I remember my father saying that all the buildings down one side of St George's Terrace, and I think it was the southern side, but I'm not, were designed by him. My half-brother Edward, who works for Channel 9, who I believe have their new base here.
I think they just popped up down the road not too long ago.
Right. And I think it might have even been Newspaper House, which was designed by my great-grandfather. Many places have been designed, but his favourite was UWA, his chapel there and church, and the boarding school at UWA.
So he's had this massive impact on the skyline of the Perth.
As well as many things like Karrakatta, the cemetery.
Yeah.
A founding member and these sorts of things. He did have a lot of different areas. In fact, my grandson, who's 8, has just joined the Boy Scouts, and great granddad was the head of the Boy Scouts in Australia. So there's all those gorgeous little connections.
Yeah, that's beautiful. You just have story upon story and connecting here and connecting there. And
oh, look, to live in Perth and wherever I go, there are buildings that I've sort of grown up with. For example, the Army Museum in Fremantle. There, up on the as you go over the old bridge up on the hill, there is some sort of way of signalling to boats.
Yes, yeah, I know the building.
And that was my grandfather, Athol, was the designer of that.
Wow.
And then there's my father. He was also an architect to a certain extent. He wasn't quite as great as either his father or who was also an architect. And his but the wonderful thing is that at this day and age, Athol, my grandfather, had 2 sons, my father and my Uncle Michael, and Michael took a different course to my father. He's been the head of epidemiology, I believe, in Perth, and he's retired now. There's so many things. It's like the myriad.
You're like, what story do I move into next?
Yes. Yeah.
So your dad served, your grandfather served, and your great grandfather served. All served in the army.
Yes, and Mervyn, the second son, as I said, they're in India with the. Mervyn was a professional soldier and worked with the what are they called? How could I forget it? Gurkhas. He was in the Gurkhas and absolutely fabulous. One of the ladies in that, her father was also in those Gurkhas, and they tried to get pensions for the Gurkhas several years ago.
Oh, okay.
I'm not quite sure what happened on that score.
Wonderful. So what is it like coming from a family with such a legacy? Did you ever think about joining the military or...?
Well, my dear, I was in a car accident when I was 18, which was like being hit by an IED bomb from, walking along the road, IED bomb from the right. And because of the sensitivity of the situation, I received no compensation or no. The only compensation I've received, of course, is from the government, that they've provided me with a house and and they provide me with money as a pension. Well, now actually I'm over 65, so I'm an old age pensioner and getting the pneumonia shot for over 65-year-olds. Those are funny things in life. It's quite amazing. I'm having a party soon for my brother, who died at the beginning of the centenary. He died in February 2014, and then my mother died 2 years later in 2016 in the third year of the...
It's been a rough couple of years.
And yes, my father died at the end of the World War.
Okay, so salt over the shoulder, holy water, whatever good luck's going to bring you this year.
Yes, it is wonderful to be this age with the centenary as it's turned out, and that's where I hope my piece will be of what?
Yeah, I think it's a
some
great
cheer
piece.
Or something for the soldiers.
Yeah, what she's talking about here is Verity wrote a really lovely story about the history of her family, and it's actually going to be published in the next copy of our listening post, so make sure you grab a copy and read all about it there. So there's actually a statue of your great-grandfather, and that's at the Supreme Court Gardens?
Yes, it was on the waterfront, and it's funny because my brother died a few months after. He died actually in Thailand, but he died a few months after the statue was moved. So if he'd been in Perth, nothing would have seemed any different to him. He died, as I say, in Thailand, and I was fortunate to be there in the last 3 years, going back and forth, him coming over here for chemo and staying at my place. And yes, it's been quite a centenary.
Oh dear. But so how do you feel when you see that statue?
Oh, I can't tell you. This car accident I was in, I was largely ignored because the person that was driving belonged in a medical family and is a doctor at the time. He was a med student, and I have been sort of ignored. I'm sort of kind of like a small injured female, that's sort of... Anyway, one has to go on, and I have gone on, and here I am today.
Yeah.
Soldier on.
That's what you got to do, right? Put a face on and
absolutely.
just move
just
forward
get
with
on
things.
With it.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually understand. I was in a car accident a couple of years ago, and it was just awful. Really messed with my back. It made things very difficult for me for quite a while.
Yes. Yeah.
And you got to pick yourself back up and just go.
Yeah, it was very hard for me because I was unconscious for a month. I was actually, this car accident happened down on the road from Albany out to Mount Barker, and a nurse going by saw the accident and stopped and heard my blood gurgling because I had a broken jaw. I had received this blow, and I was taken by ambulance to the coast and flown up to Royal Perth Hospital, and was unconscious for a month, and it took me several years to come out of it. But you're quite aware of just how long they last, and can last for life with the.
Yes, it absolutely can. Yeah.
And we think of all those poor soldiers.
They come back with shell shock or missing limbs or
Absolutely.
all kind of awful things. And you're right, it affects your entire life for the rest of your life.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes. And see, this is where I wonder where I could perhaps be of help, because I have been through this head injury and the sort of results that estrange one from life. One only has to listen to soldier stories after they've come back with such injuries and they're alone, feel alone, all these sort of things which are so important.
No, I think you're right. It's very important that people talk about these things. I mean, half the issue I think with mental health issues or anything like that is that people don't talk about them, and there's this stigma around it, so nobody wants to be the one to stand up and say, I've got this, it's okay.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. I mean, I was just watching something on TV about a soldier who had gone through a similar thing and was just lonely and intimidated and estranged from life and this sort of thing. I mean, and I think of all the soldiers that must have come back with things like that, that have just been overlooked.
Did any of your family have any issues after coming back from the wars, or?
No.
Oh, that's lucky.
No. Well, of course, my great-grandfather acquired a lot of money through that victory, and which, of course, he poured back into Royal Freshwater Bay Yacht Club and the Army, the Irwin Barracks, all three, or designed things and have done things at the Army Barracks to do with our family. And, there is the sort of Hobbs Artillery Hall there.
Oh, of course, yes.
Yes.
I don't know why that didn't click in my head yet.
Yes. Which is actually just around the corner from where I live, which is beautiful because I get to hear the band.
Oh, yes.
In the distance, and that is another beautiful, secure sound. But really, it is such an honour for you to publish my article in your magazine. It is a family organisation.
Yeah, it very much is.
Very much so, and good on them.
Well, I mean, I think they
good
do a
on
good
you.
job. I just do the marketing, but yeah, I think the RSL does a pretty good job, and it's changed so much over the years.
Oh, it has. See, that's the thing about the statue. It was on the waterfront of the river, the Swan River, that we all swam in, sailed on, and all the lived on. The bungalow was on on the water there down at Freshwater Bay, and now it's in Supreme Court Gardens. Well, it could be in a lot worse place. But
well, that's true.
It isn't where it was originally erected, and our dear Mr. Barnett saw fit to move it. Of course, the family was asked and accepted.
Okay.
Rolling with the times.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, it's great that they kept the statue, and Supreme Court Gardens are beautiful.
Yes.
I really think there's not enough recognition for him. I don't actually remember learning about him in high school, and I think it's a big shame, especially for someone from Perth.
Yes.
He should be absolutely just exalted and, shouting from the rooftops.
He's our hero, our World War I hero.
Yeah.
As Monash.
Yeah.
On the other side of Australia.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, not just a war hero, but it sounds like he has done so much for the Perth community back in the day, and he's helped to build Perth as we know it.
Absolutely. That is the thing. Wherever I go in Perth, there's buildings. There's my great-grandfather, my grandfather, Yes, I'm very blessed.
Have you considered writing like a biography on him?
I have.
Yeah.
Not about him alone. I would like to... I'm actually writing a book.
Yeah.
In it will be the three generations, as well as each person, my father, my mother, my brother, and me, and other members of the family as well. If there's two members of the family, as I think I said, approached, Alex belongs in the Navy, and he's a young man and was over here in 2014, and I was able to show him. He was on the train and went past the Hobbs Artillery Hall, and that's which is quite amazing. You come from somewhere else in the world, and all these footsteps of the family are.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I come from a family of basically nomads, picked up and moved every generation, So to have that kind of connection with a place, that sounds absolutely fascinating to me.
Yes, it is. As you can imagine, that car accident left me pretty insecure, but one thing that kept me going was that, because it was something, many things were taken away from me, and it was one thing that could never be taken away.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, I guess we'll wrap that up there, and I just want to say thank you so much for coming in and sharing your story.
Oh, sweetheart, thank you.
I'll make sure you get a copy of the listening post when your story is published.
Beautiful,
and
lovely, thank you.
If you finish the book, please let us know. We'd love to see it.
Yes, I would love to do
Wonderful.
that.
Thank you so much. This podcast was edited, published and produced by the RSLWA. Head to www.rslwa.org.au for other content. Make sure to subscribe to this podcast and follow us on Instagram, Twitter and Facebook.